let's go ahead and get started here. So, thank you everyone for joining. My name's Zachary Zane. I host the Bye Babes Book Club with Elstora, and this month's pick. So, February was "You Got to Be You." How to embrace. Wait, hold it. The full title: How to Embrace the Messy Life and Step into Who You Really Are by Brandon Cal Goodman. And I'm going to read a little bit of your bio here. So, as a
Oh,
writer, actor, host, and sexual mental wellness advocate, Brian Kell Goodman is best known for their work on Netflix's smash hit and Emmy nominated series Big Mouth and its spin off Human Resources, two of my favorite shows in the history of mankind, like my go to guilty pleasure, along with Amazon's Modern Love, Hulu's Plus One, Netflix's Feel the Beat, and ABC's Abbott Elementary. In 2024, Goodman launched their podcast, Tell Me Something Messy. Goodman shares an inspiring and uplifting message of self love and acceptance with their first book, You Gotta Be You, released in 2022. They continue their writing on relationship, sex, and identity for the Messy Monday Substack. And in fall of 2025, Goodman debuted off Broadway in their solo show, Ho Church, which is an unabashed celebration of self love, combining spirited storytelling, divine music, and all things holy to heal the parts of ourselves that shame tries to erase. And I think one of the reasons I love you and your work, and everyone knows we're friends outside of this too, is just because we both have very similar missions in what
yeah.
we are trying to do. And I think we bond over that. And one thing I loved about your book was the fact when we're talking about, I read so many queer memoirs in preparation for my memoir.
Yeah.
And all of them spoke about like your authentic self and being you. And it was kind of lip service.
Mm,
They did not give actionable items. And so it's like, okay, like being authentically you is great in theory. How do I get there? Because that's the journey. That's the hard part. You can say it as many times as you want, but how do I believe that I'm safe? I'm loved? Um, and your book was really inspiring to me because you really gave kind of actionable items for here's how we get to reach this point. And so it was not lip service. So even though the book itself isn't the most bisexual book, this is probably the least bisexual book of anyone, I still thought it was extremely important. And I would honestly make an argue that non-binary is inherently bisexual because if we think about sexuality as like I'm a man attracted to another man and therefore I'm gay, I'm a man attracted to a woman. Well, if I'm non-binary, I'm neither man or woman. So inherently, that's the claim I'm making. But I actually would love, and I stole this from Jacob Tabaya when they interviewed me for my book. They're like, "I'm going to tell you what to read." And I'm like,
yeah.
"Oh, okay." Like you don't get to pick.
I
So
love it.
I would actually, I thought that was such a great thing. And I have something, of course, I just marked it and then the page came out. I think here it is. On page 32 of the hardcover, if you go I just would love for you to read the two paragraphs. It starts 32 at the bottom. It starts with I first came out as bisexual. And if you could just read those two paragraphs, so we're tying in the bisexuality here a little bit.
Yeah. You got it. Um, I first came out as bisexual because part of me thought I was still attracted to women sexually, as most of my sexual experiences had been with my female classmates. But I mainly said it because I thought it would still tether me to the heterosexual world, providing a sliver of those ABVs. I do think it's important to note that in 2007, we weren't having the thoughtful conversations around bisexuality that we are now. People often joked that bisexuality was just a bridge to being gay. So let's enter the gray for a moment. I can't qualify whether that tactic is right or wrong because I think many of us who wrestle with our queer labels, whether it's sexual orientation or gender identity, may claim one thing and then as time goes on, claim something else based on a deeper feeling of comfort. We're often in survival mode after all. But I also want to make sure to verbalize that being bisexual is a sexual orientation that deserves to be respected and held sacred as its own identity, and someone who identifies as bisexual should never be viewed as being confused, greedy, or on a bridge to being gay.
Yes, sing it from the rooftops. I love it. I think I just love you explained it so simply and so succinctly. And I love the way that you approached it. Like, hey, let's get into the gray of this, where it's like, hey, I'm not gonna blame myself for coming out as bi before being gay. I think that's
Yeah.
valid. But and many people, many gay men have to make that step or that part. but at the same time, you recognize you don't have this myopic point of view. You're not like, because I identified as bi and then later as gay, therefore every single bisexual person
Right.
is doing this. And you just, I think that's a great thing about your book is the way that you hold space kind of for both of these things, for having kind of conflicting, potentially conflicting ideas that coming together and really sitting in the gray. So I just thank you. Thank you. I guess I don't have a question there, but I just like it's such a simple concept that people seem to not be able to get, and it's like, no, it is this simple. Look how clearly Brandon got this.
Yeah, that was for basically all my bisexual friends because I know that that is the struggle to be able to feel like you belong in like which space do you belong in, and people discarding or discounting your identity, which it's it's always frustrating to me when we inside the queer community discard other people's identities when we ourselves have been discarded, and so just like really wanting to step that out so that whoever was reading it could feel that they belonged.
And that kind of leads into my next question. Something. Sorry if I'm looking over here. I just have my
Oh,
notes. I'm going
yeah,
back and
you're
forth.
good.
Um, One thing from your book and then knowing you as a friend is you always lead with compassion.
Hmm.
And or perhaps not always, but at least in the ways that I've seen you, the way that you present yourself. And I'm just kind of bewildered by it. I like in a good way. I just like, how do you do this? And you consistently manage to do so when compassion, more often than not, is not necessarily extended to you. And
Mm,
so I was just like, any tips for some people who we get jaded, we get bitter, we get extremely angry, and angry, of course, is valid and
yep,
it sets boundaries and it is good and it is healthy. And it's a way to what you do with your angers can be beneficial or negative, but obviously emotions in themselves are just emotions. They're information. So I don't want to say like, no, you're not allowed to be angry. Of course you
of
can
course.
be, but I think as a motto or as a like you generally try to approach things with compassion and are not seemingly jaded. And I, as someone who is a little jaded, how?
How? That's a great question. I I mean, I think there's kind of 2 parts. One is therapy as fuck, you know what I'm saying? I'm like,
Yes.
"My god," just, like, being able to, have that person, kind of walk you through the wounds of your life, and then when you start doing that, you kind of see that everyone is wounded or did I lose you?
Hold on. I got a call and
Okay,
it. Why did it do that? Okay, I'm back here.
yeah, perfect, great,
All right,
go
let
ahead.
me turn on Do Not Disturb. I thought I
Yeah, do
did
it.
have that on. Okay, I'd reduced interruptions. Different. Okay, now we're good.
You're good. Anyways, like therapy, and like once you learn that you have wounds, you realize that everyone has wounds. And so like that we're all a lot of times reacting from our wounds. And so oftentimes it has nothing to do with you, that you are an
Mhm.
avatar of people's experiences. And so they see a caricature of you or an idea of you and they react. And so I try to have in the same way that I tried to have grace for myself in the ways that I might have fucked up. I try to have grace for others. It doesn't mean that I excuse bad behavior, but it does allow me to take a moment and take a breath and say, okay, is this about me or is this possibly about something else? And then can I, just because my grandmother was also like this, it's like just because they're a monster doesn't mean you have to become a monster. And quite
Oh,
honestly,
I like that.
they're not necessarily, I mean, some people are monsters, but it's like it's not necessarily they are a monster, but like they're unhealed, and the things that are unhealed are coming out in this monstrous way. You don't have to respond in the same way. You get to actually, I think, soften that fire by being the water. And again, you don't have to be friends with them or make a life with them or keep them in your life. You can hold your boundaries, but it's like, oh, I don't have to get to that level because that doesn't feel good to me anyway. So just trying to, does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense, and I think a part of that is also to what you're saying, like having a curiosity of where this is coming
Yes.
from in other people. Like you'll sometimes see, like I don't have the thick enough skin to do this, but I know like some famous like activists or influencers when they get flack on their shit, they'll engage, be like, "Hey, dude, what's going on? Like, are you
Yep.
having a rough day?" And then they'll screenshot this when someone is angry and revved up and says something terrible and comments on you, and like the influencer, the person, the activists themselves know, okay, this isn't really about me. Like, are you doing
Yeah.
okay? And even just a digital interaction of them being like, hey, I saw you did this comment. It's like, what's going on? And seeing these people like all of a sudden break down to strangers and apologize for, hey, I didn't mean to do this. So I think having that curiosity is helpful. I think, yeah, you have to be somewhat, I don't know what the opposite of necessarily narcissistic is, but just being like, hey, this doesn't actually have to do with me. Like this is them projecting their own insecurities, and that allows you to have compassion.
Yeah, it's empathy and it's humanity. I think when the influencers or activists who do that, it's like, oh, I'm going to bring humanity back into this because the parasocial relationship can allow people to see you again as an object. We see each other as objects, and so we think we can say whatever we want to these objects, and we forget, no, no, this is a human in the same way that you're a human. And so sometimes just that curiosity, which again, no one owes. We don't. If somebody's rude to me, I don't owe you that, but
Yeah,
I can choose to take that step and be like, hey, what's going on? It brings humanity back into the space, and some people are really able to receive that and some aren't. And by the way, I said, like, I want to make it clear that we're all always healing. I think just some of us are further along in our healing journeys, but we will all always be healing. But if you're not in that process, if you're not self-aware, you bleed on people, and it's really your old wounds that just haven't mended.
it's hurt people hurt people. I know
Yeah,
we always say that, like,
yeah,
and it's become kind of this like overused axiom, but I think there's so much truth to it. And it's so funny. I'm going to point my therapy. I've been in therapy since I was 8 because I had
okay,
terrible OCD, and obviously not. There've been years where I haven't, and it's like it's finally getting to a place where it's like, I think this is kind of what you're getting. Like I need you sometimes when it's also when you're on this journey, knowing when to somewhat take a break from it, being
sure.
like a because it can be so emotionally enervating and so much exploration. I feel like in my 20s, I was like, I have to do this. And it's like, you have your whole life to do this. So
Yes.
you don't need to figure out everything immediately. And
Oh,
therefore,
hold
this
on.
is a journey in the healing process. So don't feel like I will be fixed. I have to do this now. It's like, give yourself some grace.
Yeah, the bottom of one mountain, the top of one mountain is the bottom of another. Like it's never going to complete itself. It was
Yeah,
continue forever and ever.
no, absolutely. Um, okay, moving on a little bit. So I think the word safety is a
Uh-huh.
sort of nebulous concept until it finally clicks in your brain. And you can logically know that you are safe, but due to trauma, due to conditioning, due to genetics, whatever it is, um, your body doesn't feel it. And so you go into overdrive, or alternatively, you shut down, like something like that. So it could be one or the other. And I'd love because you talk about safety. I'm trying to remember. Now I might actually be getting confused between Ho Church and your book. So
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember where it might be in both.
probably
But
both.
I'd love to know kind of like how you just approach being safe and how do you know when you're actually unsafe versus uncomfortable, let's say, because I
Well,
do think there is a difference.
there is a difference. It's somatically, like I think it's and there's a process to, like, I think relearning your nervous system, and understanding that your body is always kind of giving you cues and sense and intuition. But you have to kind of like, I think trial and error, relearn that because we are in our society taught to disconnect from our body. And so by the time you are out of school, like, as kids, you're in your body, you're playing, you're thinking, you're throwing your shit around, and then you have to refine, be more polite, have manners, have manners. And so like all of that tapping into your body goes away, and I think it's re-tapping into it. Um, but I think also like setting myself up for the most success, and some of that comes from
Mm,
a lot of that comes from asking questions. So it's like if I get a tingle in my body, I'm going to ask, "What is that? Like, do I feel safe? Do I feel uncomfortable? Is this a space for growth, or like, do I really feel like some danger here?" And that's just like that curiosity, that little curiosity allows me to answer the question and then give myself what I need, as opposed to I think sometimes we will have these flags and we ignore them. We suppress them and we push through them or we run away as opposed to really getting curious about what it is. So that's the first thing is like me asking myself those questions and
mhm.
then like learning what I need to feel safe. So sometimes I know that like when I go out, I can feel really anxious. This is really low six. I can feel really anxious when I have to go to like a work event or something like that. And so I know that I have to have a plus one. That makes me feel safe. And so like that is just my remedy to that. Like
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to your party or to your event if I don't have a plus one. Like that, and that's just like how I make myself feel safe. So those are that's like like a nugget, but it's just like asking yourself, do you feel safe or uncomfortable? And then asking yourself, what do you think you need? My mentor, which I say in the book, Ellen, this was about my mom, but she was like, if you were your own parent, what advice would you give to yourself? And so that idea of parenting yourself
Mm,
really bodes well in terms of making sure that I'm safe, that I'm responsible for myself. And so, what is it that I need? And also, the other piece of this is as you navigate the discomfort, you don't have to like get over it right away. Like it's baby steps, you know? So, like, maybe one day I will be able to go to that party with nobody and be fine, but I don't have to be there today. I don't need to shame myself about that today.
yeah,
Because,
you could start with someone there, and then if they
yes,
want to leave early, you're like, okay, I'm already comfortable now. I don't need you
yes,
by
yes.
myself. Whatever it is, baby steps. I love
You
that.
don't have to shame yourself into being the most comfortable or whatever it is. And also, if something feels unsafe, that my favorite is like leave now and you can unpack the details later. Like
Yeah,
that's really important. Like if you are feeling a sense of danger, you don't have to explain it. You're like, there's something's off about this crowd or this space. Just get out of there, and then you can unpack the details later. That's really important about the
y
safety.
exactly. And I think for people like myself who I had OCD, high anxiety, that taken years, and obviously somatic therapy was the most helpful of all the
Yeah.
versus CBT, somatic therapy being actually DBT, which they use now to treat OCD, which they didn't when I was younger.
Okay.
But one thing I didn't realize is when you're an anxious person, you have a dysregulated nervous system, you perceive that high arousal as safety.
Mm,
And the reason why is because, oh, I'm in fight or flight mode, and therefore I am prepared. And so you would often, when you were relaxed, you would actually feel unsafe. And so you had to condition yourself to be like, because you feel unprepared. So you have to condition yourself to be like, oh, I'm actually am safe when I'm not highly aroused. And I look back on it, there's something also called the misattribution of arousal, which was
okay.
like a theory that was studied in like social sciences for forever. But essentially, it's when people arousal in your body can mean you are unsafe. It could also mean you are horny. Um, and sometimes people get confused as to what is the root of this arousal. Like, am
Yeah.
I anxious or am I this? And I look back on it, I put myself in a lot of extremely unsafe sexual scenarios.
Oh,
Uh, and because I would going to people who were clearly sketchy, clearly not sober, clearly not going to respect my boundaries, clearly doing this very late at night because I was aroused and it was this and I assumed and I kind of like was like I like this and then I kind of played with fire and I got burned, right? So then I did have a few really negative sexual experiences where I'm like I can't keep doing this, and then I had to kind of relearn for myself, okay, like um what is this arousal? Like, yes, danger can be hot, but danger theoretically can be hot. Let's not actually put yourself in dangerous positions. And I think many of us can get a little confused with that, especially in our 20s. And like, I've since slowed down, haven't been putting myself in unsafe positions for probably like 8 years. You know what I mean? But the 23, 24, I'm excited. I go out. So,
how did you begin to unlearn that? Or, like, to be able to discern which is which?
like, honestly, so I like the concept of this I learned in therapy. So
Okay.
it just didn't even register to me. And then after I learned that in therapy, I was like, oh, okay, let's try to see where it sits differently in my body.
Yeah.
Um, when I'm like, I'm a very heart heavy person, let's say. So I get pain in my chest, and the pain in my chest is not good. That's not a good type of arousal. It is a constriction in your chest. My body gets very tight. Um, and that's how I kind of know my body almost like clamps up when I
Mm,
am unsafe. Um, and then I think it's also just like having the logic to it as well. So it's like, okay, Zach, you're doing something that you know is unsafe, or theoretically is unsafe, right? You're going over to a stranger's house at 4 a.m. They were clearly fucked up from their messages, like, and they might have five other guys there. Like, what are you doing? So I think incorporating okay, this is I'm feeling either unsafe or I'm feeling just aroused. Okay, what is the context of this? And that can kind of help guide me. Am I actually putting myself in an unsafe position? Then yes, then you got to get out there. But it's weird to think I was putting myself in unsafe positions because I like the heightened arousal.
sure.
So it's just something. Yeah, that I had to learn to navigate, and it really blew my mind when I learned about it. So I wanted to share.
That's really interesting. It sounds like it requires taking a moment to like breathe and process, like to not just dive into something, but to like take a
It's
check in.
my ex, and I still love her to death. I was just so impressed by how quickly she could read her emotions. Where
Mhm.
like something would happen and she knew immediately, like what it was, what was wrong, what was this, and we would get into some arguments or just like miscommunications when I'm like, I need some time to process. I know something is wrong. And I don't know what it is. You are so in tune with your body. It takes me a moment, and then she was like, well, I want to talk about this. You're disengaging. I'm like, I promised you I will come back to this. This is not me being like stonewalling you, saying no, I don't want to talk about this, and then never bringing it up again. I just need to process. And I think over time we did find the balance where I think I wasn't articulating that well.
Yeah.
So she thought I was stonewalling. You know what I mean? She thought like, well, you only want to talk about things when you want to talk about them. I'm like, no, that's like, and then when I explained, I just need a moment. Something is off. Nothing terrible, but something is off, and I just need to process. But I wish I could kind of process my emotions quicker, and I think it is a muscle that you flex. I have gotten better with it over the years, but I was just very impressed with how quickly she could tell you what she was thinking and feeling in a way that like I'm a writer, like everything I do, I have to process and write it down. I don't just write the stuff that I write. I write fucking journal entries pretty much every day just to help process stuff. And journaling was also a good way to actually help process stuff.
Well, when you're socialized as a man, I think that you're taught, like, I think there's relearning that you have to do because I think boys are socialized to disconnect from their emotions in a way that I would imagine that in your adulthood, when you're trying to learn how to tap into it, there's not really a lot of information to support you in doing that. And
Exactly.
you're not necessarily around a social community that does do that. Like there are a lot of I think men who are just running around disconnected, unplugged, and have no reason why. And then they're trying to tap into their emotions. It's like, how do you do that? And there's also still social messaging that's telling you it's weak to do that. And so there's a
It's
lot. There's a lot that you're, I think, discerning
it,
and
it-
navigating.
absolutely. And the thing that men were only allowed to express was anger. You know what
Right.
I mean? And now we're like, well, you do have some more emotions. And maybe anger's not shouldn't be your only response. Like, let's have some other feelings
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. Uh Oh, okay. I have one more thing actually that I would like you to read as
Sure.
well.
Sure.
But in your entire memoir, you discuss the intersection of Black and queer identities. But there's one paragraph in particular that just really hammers this home. Um, so it's page 74. And again, the entire book is about this, but this
Yeah.
paragraph, when I reread your book, I think I read it when it came out like 2 years. Actually, I
Yeah.
probably after a year, maybe it came out. I read it like 2 years ago, and then I reread it. And I just would like, I remember reading this paragraph, what it was like 5 days ago, 4 days ago, and just being like, everyone needs this. Everyone needs this. So it's 74, and it's black gay oppression is not white gay oppression.
Okay, you got it. Here we go.
Thank you. Yeah.
Black gay oppression is not white gay oppression. To be rejected by society because of your blackness, then rejected again because of your sexuality, and then rejected again because of their intersections. We haven't even touched gender. That's a different battle from what a white gay person endures. That's spending your life on the outside of every room and every system. And human nature makes you want to desperately crawl your way back into the good graces of white society to change yourself or deny pieces of yourself so that you might be more palatable to white societal norms and standards. And if you're a black person with a white partner who thinks your lived oppressions are the same, I'm telling you now with love and respect to wake the fuck up. A white person who can't acknowledge the ways in which blackness is brutalized and black queerness is marginalized, especially inside the LGBTQIA plus community, cannot successfully support that black person because they don't think there's anything to support. They've convinced themselves that both of you move through the world with the same level of equality and equity. And as a black person, if you aren't doing your own work, if you aren't committing to learn how to love yourself fully, and you're still relying on others, specifically white others, to make you feel loved, you'll accept that bad behavior. You might even think you deserve it. You might even believe it's normal. It's not.
Thank you. Is there anything you want to add to that, or just but I think this really just says it beautifully. But yeah, obviously there's
Oh,
more to add. But yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I said that because I have a white husband, and I receive a different messages around that, different feelings around that. Some people are don't give a fuck, and some people really do give a fuck. And some people, which is who I wrote this for, um, seek white partners or whiteness as a way to feel their worth and feel their value, and will unknowingly talk to me as though that's a way for us to relate. And that is always heartbreaking because I go, no, 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 no. Like, your partner's your partner, whatever their race is, whatever their identity, that's whatever. But if you're chasing your partner because of a certain identity that you think gives you privilege or access or will heal you, that's a different ball game. And that's a minefield that's waiting to just explode in your face. Because then what happens is you tend to, in my observation is, you tend to choose a partner who doesn't see your blackness and doesn't understand that, especially if they're a non-black partner, particularly a white partner, they have to show up differently for you, than
yeah,
you have to show up for them. That, like, they have to understand social cues and their privilege. That when you leave the house, it is a different thing that you're walking into than when they leave the house. And if they can't see that, then I don't feel, I know that you're in danger. That
yeah,
yeah, you're in danger. And so it's important to love who you are, to respect and honor who you are, and to know that you, as you are in your full black beautiful body, are enough before you start to seek out partners to make you feel that. Because that will never, it'll never it'll never work out well.
yeah,
And so that was why it was really important for me to say that, and it was important for me to say that for white folks reading and listening, because I think that people, I got my one black friend. Okay, girl, what? But, like, how are you showing, if you have a black friend, or black, hopefully you have more than one, but if you have black friends, how are you showing up for them? These are really continue to be precarious times, and it's important that we're not playing oppression Olympics here, but it is important to know where your privileges lie and how do
yeah,
you show up. Like, I know that I have a privilege in this male body, and so how do I show up for my trans sisters and brothers and siblings? How do I show up for other people inside of my community who may be marginalized? How do I show up for women differently? Like,
yeah,
we all have ways that we can show up if we are aware, as opposed to trying to prove that we are the most oppressed.
yeah. There's actually a great book written by Matt Ortile. I think came
Mhm.
out around 2020, and they're Filipino, so it's a little bit obviously a different experience. But it's
Yeah.
called "The Groom Will Keep His Name," or extremely different experience. Sorry, but
Yep.
the book is about how he essentially wanted to be white. He wanted to be
Mhm.
American, and that's how he thought. Just by a proximity to whiteness, hanging out with white friends, dating white men, he will therefore be treated as white. He never was.
Yeah.
Obviously, he never was. And it
Yeah.
was about the book, among other things, is him reaching a place of embracing being Filipino, realizing that I will never be white, and I don't actually want to be white. I've just been
Yeah.
told I'll be white. I always wanted this white husband. I wanted this, and it wasn't just white. He was very into like Americana, kind of like that, which is kind of like a little bit different too. But it was just a really interesting way for, yeah, like he was hoping that by proximity, like he will be accepted and loved and safe, and the answer was no. That actually it would end up hurting him, and so it was kind of similar to what you were saying. So
Absolutely, and that's really
it's a good book.
what's the name of the book again?
The Groom Will Keep His Name by Matt
Great.
Ortile.
That's a great title. But that
Yeah,
is the empathy that I think to always have, is that it's not, it's not that you hate your race or that you hate being who you are, it's that you've learned that it's not safe.
mm,
And so you're seeking safety. And so it's just a matter of, I think, relearning what safety looks like and how you actually get safety, and relearning how to love yourself. I mean, when you're raised in a culture that tells you that you're not safe, or you're raised in a culture that tells you that this thing over here is better than you are, of course your little fragile baby brain adopts that, and then grows into that. And so it's just a matter of, at some point, like I said, wake the fuck up, and examine that, so that you can really get into the truth of the value of who you are, the beauty of who you are as you are.
Absolutely. And especially as like white people not approaching this from a guilt place. I feel like
Mhm.
that's so much when you get over consumed by guilt, or you're just like, oh, I'm a terrible person. Like, I think they confuse. It's like, no, we're not saying you individually are a terrible person, but what we're saying is you need to be aware of your whiteness and
Yeah,
the privileges that come with it. Um, but this kind of leads actually into the next question a little bit. So, you were holding space well before Cynthia and Ariana, and the only like negative thing of that little negative, or not a negative response, but I just feel like it kind of diminished the act. That, like, holding space is actually valid, and then everyone kind of memeified it and was like, "This is silly. This is
yeah.
nonsensical." And no, I actually think holding space is important. Did they say it in a way that was potentially a little funny? Maybe, but I'd like to kind of go back to it. It is legitimate, and I would love for you to explain actually what the fuck this means. Because
Mhm.
again, because it was memeified, like it's now kind of
People,
like,
like, lost the value for it.
yeah, exactly.
Holding space it's 2 things to me. It's showing up, right? It's like
Mm,
when somebody in your community is in need, you show up. It's not I'm not there to necessarily fix a thing or change a thing or save you, but I'm there to show up. Like, when
yeah,
life is hard, right? And none of us get out of this thing alive. We are going to navigate as just a myriad of things, from, relationship endings to health diagnoses to death to, career changes. Like, there's just a lot of things. And so I think holding space is the act of showing up for your people. And
I
the
love that.
other thing is, like, you don't have to hold the world on your shoulders by yourself. I'm going to hold it with you. And so that is what holding space is. It's holding the trauma with your friend or with your family member or with your community, and being like, you're not alone. At the end of it, it's saying, you're not alone. I'm here with you, and I got you in this. And that is the most important, because again, we don't get out of this thing alive, and we don't get through this thing by ourselves. We need each other. But you don't need somebody to always come in and fix a thing. You just need them to listen, or to hold your hand, or to ask you what you need. And so that is the act of holding spaces.
It, and you talk about, also it kind of relates here, like, to naming your feelings and not minimizing them.
Mhm.
And it sounds like such a simple concept, but it actually is extremely challenging, I
Oh,
would
yeah.
argue.
Yeah.
Um, how any advice for our listeners, for readers to figure out how to do this?
I start with, there is I think you can just Google feelings wheel. Like, there is somebody, I forget, a therapist that created a wheel of, like, so many feelings, because there's more than just happy, angry, and sad. But we know what happy, angry, and sad are. And so I like to start with, are you happy? Because people can pretty much feel if that is true.
Yeah.
You're not happy. um, I ask the question, like, "Why?" Or "What is the feeling that you're feeling?" You might be able to identify, "I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling anxious." Again, having that feelings wheel might help, but also then asking, like, "Why?" Did something happen today? Did something happen yesterday? Did something happen this week? Something happen this year? Just trying to start to understand, why aren't you where you wanna be? Like, if happy is, okay, we're not all gonna be happy all the time, but happy is the ideal that we're all trying to be, to be like, to feel good. If you don't feel good, then just starting to ask why, and starting to identify, oh, because this thing happened at work, and that person said X, Y, and Z, and that made me feel mad, made me feel embarrassed, made me feel shame. Just like, it's like simple, little, like, little threads. It's, again, not trying to get to 10 on this, like, starting with the basics, and starting where you are, and then you can build from there. I think you can start to build that muscle, and then it becomes a little easier and a little quicker. But it's because we don't I think the fault, or the problem is, we let things happen and we keep moving. And I'm guilty of this too. And so it's that moment of just taking a breath and checking in with yourself and asking
Yeah.
what is going on. Like I think when we were babies, our parents did that for us. Like, why is the baby crying? Why, if you had a good parent, why is the baby crying? Why is the like, and trying to help you out. And now, like, you're on your own, and the baby is crying. The baby is crying, and we're not asking why. We're not asking what's going on. We're just kind of got to send that email. Got to go meet my friend at that thing. It's like, no, no, no. Take time to take care of the baby that is you, and ask what is going on. And am I feeling how I want to feel? And if not, what can I give myself? What can I do for myself? Does baby need a bottle? Does baby need a nap? Does baby need some food? Like, yourself like that. Like, I think we're in such a rush to be adults and grown-ups, and it's like, yeah, but like that baby is still in you, and needs to be taken care of. So
It,
don't
it,
deny that.
it's getting into your body too. Goes back to the somatic work where it's like I'd be like, why am I feeling off today? Oh, it's because all I've had is iced coffee and my heart, and I haven't had a sip of water. And it's like, okay, drink some water, eat some food, work out, get this anxious energy out of your body a little bit,
Yeah,
and then come back to it. Do I feel like shit because, hey, actually, I drank a lot this weekend, and that's why I don't have therapy on Mondays. Because if she asks me on Monday, how you doing? Now I drink a lot less than I used to, but in my 20s, I was a fucking tank.
maybe.
Um, and I just learned, I was like, yeah, but nothing's wrong. I just kind of feel off. It's like, well, yeah, because you fucking drank. Like what do you expect to
Yeah,
happen here?
yeah. Be
Uh,
curious, asking yourself those questions as opposed to just letting it roll off, because it exists in your body. That's the thing I've learned. If you don't say the thing, it still exists in your body and will
yeah.
show up somehow, some way. And again, this is something I'm actively still working on. I am real good at ignoring my feelings and not saying a thing, and so I'm really actively continue to work on saying it out loud, but being able to articulate it, because you can't unknow it. Once you say it, you can't unknow it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Then you have to do something about it, or you get to choose to do something about it. But if you don't say it, then you just kind of keep moving. But that thing is still, that shit your coworker said to you 3 weeks ago is still existing inside of you. And now you out here yelling at other people because some dumb shit a coworker you don't even like said to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you got to say the thing.
You have to process it. It's with my luck, you probably end up writing this episode, but I think the only way out is through when it was
Yeah.
the grief sweater, and yeah, that was specifically for one emotion for grief. But I
Yes.
would argue that's actually helpful for many other emotions too. Anything emotion that you're suppressing, you're not dealing with, like it is going to boil up and become this bigger fucking thing than it needs to be than if you dealt with it
Yeah.
through. So the only way out is through. Again, necessary for grief, but for other emotions too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Victor Kinaj wrote that episode. It was
Okay, I was
got the
that
voice
one.
in it.
If
I loved
I
it.
need to cry,
Yeah, that's a
uh,
great episode to cry to. Humans,
um,
episode 9, I think.
it
Just
really
9, yeah.
beautiful, really
Yeah.
beautiful. And okay, I want to move into family a little bit.
Yeah, please.
Um, I have written you did an insanely brave thing, which makes me think of like someone just existing as trans. You're like, you're so brave, and they're like, fuck you. So maybe I need to maybe think of better language to do this, but I couldn't, I can't right now. But you have, you dedicate this book to your mom and your grandma.
Yeah.
Um, in the book, you talk a lot about how your mother just wasn't able to accept you for being gay, for being femme too. And I believe the phrase you said is, I decided I'm not going to be my mother's obedient child. I
Mm.
believe those were the three exact words you use. And you chose yourself. You spread your wings and flew. I know that sounds cliche, but
Yeah.
but it's true. I'm sure this is hard. I can't imagine how much you miss her, and how do you kind of deal with this on the day to day?
Yeah. Well, for those who don't, well, I guess y'all read the book or some of you, but who knows? My mom became a born again Christian about 15 years ago, and we've been no contact for that time. Yeah, 15, almost 15 and a half years. It's a day to day. Like, obviously, the first couple years were really fucking insane. I describe it as like being tossed into the middle of an ocean, and you're just
Mhm.
trying to survive. You're just trying to get yourself above water because your understanding of, I'm an only child, single mom, like your understanding of life and your world is suddenly upside down. You were living on land one day and now you're literally in the ocean. Like, what is that? And so there's a lot of just like flailing and gasping for air. And then at a certain point, like, you're floating. And when you get to float, now you can kind of look around and see where shore is, and try to get yourself there. And I think I got myself there, but periodically you get tossed back into the ocean. Like little things can trigger it. In fact, yesterday I was watching Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and one of the housewives was talking about their mom and their dad and the relationship they had. And I think the housewife's like in her 50s, and she's like a spitting image of her mom. And my husband and I were sitting on the couch, and I was like, "Oh my god, people just, like, have relationships with their moms where they can, like, ask a question
Yeah.
and be like she's the wife is going through divorce, and it's like, oh, you can just, like, go through things and, like, call your parents, and they would give you some sane advice." It's like, that is just
So
not a
foreign.
concept. That's, like, so not a concept that I understand.
Yeah.
Until like I was back in the ocean, like back in the middle of it. I think the beauty is I can get back to shore faster, and I think this will be the rest of my life. But then I kind of go like, that's everybody, right? Everybody has their thing that throws them into the ocean, and that is really difficult. But every time you get back into the ocean, you're not starting from square one. You know how to swim. You know how to put your floaties on. You know how to get back, and so you get back a little faster. And then hopefully you alchemize it, which I think I've done by talking about it. You take this thing that is painful and hard, and they say your test becomes your testimony, and hopefully you use it to help yourself, but also help others, because we're all going through something. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned in the last 15 years is that like everybody is experiencing something painful and that feels lonely and that feels um, just tragic and challenging. And the only way to get through that is to know that you're not alone. That's that holding space again.
It's a holding space. I think, first of all, thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
I I think as a society we have an empathy deficit. You know what I mean? And really, and I understand why it's hard when people are attacking you to hold space or be empathetic towards them. And I'm not saying, again, sometimes they're attacking you need to fight back, you need to
sure.
disengage. That's not what I'm saying. But I just think having it kind of speaks to your compassion, your empathy, and how it's also helpful for the self. Obviously, you're helping this other person, but I think it's an easier life to live when you're not feeling personally attacked, when you're actually realizing, hey, this doesn't have to do with me, so I can extend some empathy. And and I think this really touches on chosen family and how important that can be.
It's the most important. It's life saving. It's
It's life saving. I love that.
life saving. It's your lifeline. You can't choose the family you're born into, and hopefully, if you have a great one, like wonderful. But a lot of people don't have a great family they're born into, or aren't able to be their full selves with their family, and so chosen family really becomes everything. It is how you breathe, how you get through this thing called life. And so I
Yeah.
I owe my chosen family everything. That they are my oxygen mask, and I wouldn't be able to. It's like every kid goes to their basketball game or their track meet or their whatever, and they hope that their parent is in the stands, clapping for them. And when you don't have that, your chosen family is there. Like
Yeah.
I have a whole bunch of people who are in the stands for me, and of course, there's sometimes a sadness that it is in my blood, but that then I realize is much more about perception
Mm.
than actually the value, right? Like we are also reared and indoctrinated to value blood in a way, and to like put our parents and things on pedestals as
Yeah.
opposed to seeing them as human. And when I like see my mom as a person and not just as like a mother figure, I'm able to have empathy and be like, oh, you just don't have the capacity to show up in this way. And I'm also able to recognize that what I'm yearning for is an idea of her, not the
Mm.
actual person. And that makes it easier because the people that are in the stands, oh, I love who they are. And I'm so inspired and moved by who they are. And I love how much they love me. When I look at my mother as who she is, it's like, oh, she can't show up like that. So I'm really grieving the idea of mother, grieving the idea of father and the actual people themselves. And that helps a bit.
Yeah. No, I think that's really helpful. I wanted to save the last 10 minutes for questions, so I'm going to ask you one more. But if you guys want to write in the message chat, it should just come up. Yeah, so if you guys just write a message, have any questions for Brandon, absolutely. But while you guys are thinking of that, I'll ask you just kind of the last thing here.
Yeah, please.
Um, if readers could just take away one thing from your book, obviously there are many things, but what would be one or two things from your book that you really hope readers would take away?
Oh the biggest thing is you're enough as you are, and that's
Ugh.
I like it's so cheesy, but I had a writing teacher who said cheese is good, like cheese is tasty. Everyone loves
Yes.
cheese. Everyone loves cheese. Cheese is great. Okay. But you're enough as you are, and I say that because I think that we live in a society where everything tells us that we aren't, that you don't look a certain way, that you don't act a certain way, that you don't sound a certain way, and like here are the things we can do to fix that, right? Like everything's about like what products you need, what outfits you need, what everything is telling us that we are not enough and we need something to fix it.
Capitalism thrives on us not being
Baby, that
enough.
is
Yeah.
capitalism. That's her gig. That's
That is her gig. That's how she gets her coin.
so I think the biggest thing is I want people to take away is that you're enough as you are. Oh, my husband and my dog. That you're enough as you are is probably the biggest takeaway that I want people to have. And that like your liberation and living as you are and like building your own blueprint to how you want to live is your birthright. That you don't have to live how other people told you, right? The opening question is, who would I be if society never got its hands on me? That you don't have to live the way that, your parents did or your neighbors are, that it's your life and you get one of them. As far as we know, maybe there's another one, but in this body, you
For
get one of them.
now, for
For
now,
now,
let's yeah.
you get the one. And so like at the end of your life, you don't want to wake up on your deathbed and be like, wow, I lived it for everybody else, but I didn't do none of the things that I wanted to do. I didn't take those risks. You lived it based in fear. You didn't take that risk. You didn't go out on that thing. You didn't pursue that other thing because you were afraid or because your mom didn't want you to be gay. Whatever it is, it's like
Yeah.
that seems. I don't want that. You don't want those regrets. What is Viola Davis had said it, but like the definition of hell is on your deathbed, the person you are meeting the person you could have become.
It's and that's
Baby.
why you meet those people who have like a near death experience
Hmm.
and they're so I don't want to say healed, that's not the right word, but they're a little bit more fearless because they know how precarious life is. And I actually, weirdly enough, I always feel like I learned something from them. I like it's such a weird thing to be like, yeah, I'm like dating people who almost died from brain cancer and then didn't, just because they have a live life
Yeah.
perception. They are kinder. They know the people that help them versus not. And yeah, like I'm always drawn to people, and you can sense that when it's like you had a near death experience, and therefore you are now the person that you want to become
Yeah.
because we only
You,
got one life.
you understand it's finite. This isn't a
Yeah.
never ending story. The song
Um.
that
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Brandon, I think you healed everyone. We have no questions. So I think that's it. We solved it. But
yeah.
I want to ask, what are you working on? Where can we find you? All of that good stuff.
I'm working on my next book, which I'm very excited about. And then I'm working on bringing Ho Church to Los Angeles. But you can find me on here at Substack, BrandonKyleGoodman.substack.com. And then you can also find me on Instagram at Brandon Kyle Goodman.
Can you share, just for us, this is a book club after
Yeah.
all, a little bit about what the next book is going to be? But also, if you're like, no, I usually don't tell people, and my book's already
Yeah.
like written. I still don't tell people what my second book's about. So
No,
like,
I'm working on a book about disruptive curiosity. So like the art of asking
oh,
wrong questions. And so how do you ask questions that allow you to heal, interrupt the GPS, generational cycles, personal habits, and scarcity mindset that keeps you from living your most liberated life.
we almost need to like take the Socratic method and apply it to ourselves, where it's just like Socrates just went around just asking people questions. It's like, I don't get that. One more time, do
Yeah,
this, dig
yeah,
deeper,
yes,
deeper, deeper,
yes,
deeper.
that,
And he
that,
and he
that.
did that to expose logical, fallacies, essentially.
Yeah,
Just like, oh, you say this, well, actually, when you break it down, it doesn't make sense. But I
yeah,
think there's something to say about having that still curiosity and that questions towards the self, towards others, not because you're trying to find something flawed in their reasoning, but
right.
just because you're just trying to figure out what's underneath, buried underneath all the shit.
Literally, literally. That's it.
I love
That's it.
that.
Thank
Um,
you.
Thank you everyone for joining, Brandon. I always love talking to you. I always
Ah,
learn something
same
new. I come out a little bit kinder, and I think that means a lot.
Thank
Uh,
you. Thank you for this opportunity. This was exciting and wonderful.
No question, but very grateful if you do for enlightening conversation. Truly, our pleasure. In case you missed some of it, I'm going to do some posts, Brandon. I can do that like for
Okay,
us so that we
great.
can share it with you all. Just in case you came in late or you want to share it with someone else. But again, thank you all very much. A special thank you to Brandon. I love you all. Love you, Brandon. I'll see you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.